Hi, I'm Dale, coming from my garage again and continuing my garage reorganization. And today is finally the day I get to build a stand for my drill press here. That way I neither have to kneel on the ground like I am now or lift the heavy thing to a table every time I want to use it. It's such a hassle doing either. I rarely use it and I really want to use it more because it's a great tool. The basic design comes from April Wilkerson. I'll leave a link in the description below to her site so that you can take a look at the designs where I gained my inspiration from. I have changed the design a bit, especially the measurements to fit me better, but that is where I got the initial design from. So with no more waiting, let's go ahead and get started. Except for the pull-out drawer and the back, the entire cabinet is made out of 3/4 inch plywood. I cut the top to 20 inches wide and 23 inches deep. My drill press is 10.5 inches wide and 16 inches deep, so this should give plenty of support while wheeling this around my garage. I cut both sides of the stand to 27 1/8 inches tall by 23 inches deep. When you factor in the thickness of the top and bottom plywood, as well as the 4-inch castors, the total height of the stand is going to be roughly 32.5 inches, which is perfect for me. Continuing with the 3/4 inch plywood, I cut shelves at 18 9/16 by 23 inches. 2 shelves are needed, one for the drawer and one for the larger shelf at the bottom. I think you can tell by this shot that it is really high on my list to get better lighting in my garage, as it's very dark. Moving to the 1/2 inch plywood, I cut the back. The back is cut at 20 inches by 28 5/8 inches. Again, I could have used a 1/4 inch, would have been plenty strong enough, but I didn't have any lying around the garage, and I did have a 4x8 sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. The final cuts we make are out of the 1/2 inch plywood for the drawer bottom, which is 23 inches by 18.5 inches, then 2 drawer sides, which is at 3.5 inches by 23 inches, and the front and back of the drawers at 3.5 inches and 17 3/4 inches. Before I go any further, I cut a few, just some scraps, just to show you how things were going to go together. So the bottom, I'll be putting the sides on top of the bottom, and the top will go on top of the sides like so, so that all of the weight is going to be coming down on top of the wood, pushing wood into wood, so the screws in my joints don't have to really put up that much of the strength. It's all going to be just downward pressure. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch on the back. Why not a 1/4 inch? Because I don't have 1/4 inch lying around. I have some 1/2 inch lying around. So I'm going to put some 1/4 inch on the back, which will really give it the stability that it needs. Now the type of joints I'm going to use are going to be pocket holes. So I'm going to be using pocket holes all along the bottom here to connect it to the bottom of the sides to the bottom. Pocket holes across the top of the sides that will attach and connect it to the top. I'll do that on both sides. I'll also have pocket holes across the bottom here, which will attach to the back. Pocket holes across the back of the sides, which will also attach it to the back on both sides. The pocket holes on the bottom, they will be visible, as well as the pocket holes here. This is not fine furniture, fine cabinetry. This is just for my drill press, so I don't really care that you're going to see the pocket holes here. If this was something that was going to be going inside of the house, or I'm building some furniture where I don't want to see those, or if I'm just really picky about the garage, which I'm not, then I would not use pocket holes across here, or I would use them and put in some dowels to plug the holes so that you wouldn't see them. But for this, I think it's going to be plenty. It'll be plenty strong with all the downward pressure. I don't care about the pocket holes being visible. I'm not sure if I mentioned this was my first project using pocket holes, and I really wanted to use pocket holes as much as I could. Well, I drilled pocket holes and pocket holes and more pocket holes. And when I thought I had enough pocket holes, I drilled some more pocket holes. I covered the top, bottom, and both sides with all the pocket holes I'll be needing to attach the sides to the top and bottom. The next step is to take the first side, lay down a bead of glue, and attach all of the pocket hole screws to the bottom. I'm not sure if the glue was actually needed or not, as the pocket holes do make a strong connection, and like I said earlier, all of the force is downward, but I went ahead and used the glue anyways, just to be safe. Once the first side is done, repeat the process on the second side. I know there's a lot of debate on pocket holes being strong enough, but I felt this was pretty strong. I was impressed at how strong this joint actually was. To install the top of the stand, I actually work upside down by putting the top on the workbench and then flipping the stand over and putting it on top. I first lay down a bead of glue on both sides and then drill in all of the pocket hole screws. At the end of this, even without the back on, I was able to sit on it and not have a problem. Even side-to-side motion seemed pretty strong, although I certainly wouldn't trust it without a back. At this point, it was a good bit out of square, so I decided to go ahead and put the back on now, and that would square it up and hold it. To install the back, simply screw in all the pocket hole screws. To install the shelves, I turned the stand upside down and put the top shelf in first, which is actually going to be the bottom shelf when it's upside down. To do this, I cut 4-inch pieces of scrap to hold the shelf into place while I screw it in with the pocket holes. For the second shelf, I follow the same procedure as I did for the first, except this time I use an 8-inch piece of scrap to hold the shelf into place, as I want this shelf to be a little deeper. To install the castors, I first turn the stand upside down and mark where they'll go on the bottom. I then pre-drill each hole with a 9/64 bit, and then I use a number 14 3/4-inch screw to attach each of the castors. The two front castors are locking so that when I do move it in my garage, I can lock it in place. Next, I turn the stand right side up on the castors and I center the drill press on the top. I then use a 1/2-inch drill bit and drill 2 holes so that I can attach the drill press to the cabinet. I use a 1/2-inch by 3.5-inch bolts to tighten it down. So now that is done, I went from this to that. It's much nicer. I really like the way it came out. A couple of things that I would have done different though is when I screwed the back to it early, I would have waited until the end after I put the shelves in to put the back on. When I originally put the sides, top and bottom on, it was out of square pretty good, so I figured put the back on now, it'll square it up, which it did, but it then made putting in the 2 shelves quite a bit more difficult. Also, I don't think I would have used pocket holes for the back. I think I would have just tacked them in with nails on the back, put them straight to the back. But this was my first project using pocket holes, so I kind of wanted to use them. I really like them, but I think just tacking it to the back. Again, if it was any kind of furniture that we'd be bringing inside, then I'd rabbet out the backs and sit at the back in flush so you couldn't really see it. But again, this is just for my garage, so it really doesn't matter. The other big mistake that I made, right down here, this shelf here, if you remember, I had it upside down when I was putting the shelves in. Well, I took the measurement from the top, which was the bottom when I had it upside down, and I measured, but I was measuring as if it was from the bottom. So it's actually 3/4 of an inch too low, which means I have to lay a couple of my cases on the side instead of being able to stand them up like I wanted to. So I will probably come back and take that shelf off and raise it up 3/4 of an inch so that those will slide in a little better. I will also go ahead and probably give this a coat of paint, not sure what color, but give it some sort of a paint job, and then I can call it done. But right now I'm pleased with it. It rolls really well. So much easier now to come back and take this out and work on it now versus what I used to have to do was either, like I said, kneel down on the floor and do it, or lift it up to a table, which then took over the table that I was using because I don't have a lot of workbenches. It was just, and it was plus just getting it out of there was a pain. So yeah, I really like it. If you guys have any questions, shoot me an email. Appreciate it if you go ahead and like this if you do, and leave a comment with any questions, and subscribe if you want to follow my organization challenge of my garage. I have a long way to go. But for now, I'll push this back in, and like every night, bring the car into the garage, because that's number one. It is a garage, not just a workshop. See you guys.